When a caregiver asked me, how can I explain to my friends what it's like to care for someone with Alzheimer's? I said, you really can't. Unless someone has experienced this themselves, they have no concept of how physically demanding and emotionally wrenching it is to witness the steady decline of someone they love. New challenges seem to appear every single day. Sound familiar? Of course. So now what I'd like to talk about is stress, triggers, and sundowning, and what we can do to make these challenges a little more manageable for ourselves and for our care receivers. But before we begin, I would like for you to imagine just for a moment how it would feel if every morning when you woke up, you felt like all of the people and all of the things around you were pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, but you had no idea of what this puzzle would look like if all of those pieces were fit together. So you didn't know how to match them up. So imagine if you stepped out of bed, aware of the fact that you really needed to go to the bathroom, but you couldn't remember where it was located. And what if you knew that the person who was standing at the stove was a major piece of your puzzle, but you just couldn't figure out where or how they fit in? And how might you respond if suddenly that person started talking to you really, really fast in a language that you could not understand? And then imagine that you're sitting in your living room and watching television, and a total stranger comes up to you, grabs you by your arm, and says, all right, we're going to go take a shower. And this time, I do not want you to resist me, and I do not want you to, I don't want you to fight or hit me. Do you understand? Well, that would be pretty stressful for most of us, don't you think? I do. And unfortunately, this is what life may feel like to a person who is living with Alzheimer's or another dementia-related disease. Every time they can't make sense of how something works, where they are, or who they are with, they experience stress. And as caregivers, we need to be aware that if this happens frequently and repeatedly throughout the day, it will not be at all unusual for them to experience sundowning behaviors late in the afternoon and early evening. Now, according to the Alzheimer's Association, symptoms of sundowning are increased restlessness, agitation, irritability, and confusion. They might become suspicious to the point of paranoia. They could start pacing or wandering or yelling. They could become uncooperative and belligerent to the point of being aggressive. And unfortunately, late afternoon, when these challenging behaviors associated with sundowning ratchet up, it is exactly the same time that caregivers are running low on energy and patience and are in desperate need of a break. It sort of feels like all of the elements are coming together to create a perfect storm. Wouldn't you agree? So, if we want to avoid that storm and ward off unpredictable, frustrating, and sometimes dangerous or outrageous behavior, we might want to look at how we change the way we manage their routines, their environment, and our behavior during the day, so that we can minimize the triggers that create stress and lead to the challenging behaviors in the late afternoon that are associated with sundowning. So triggers are events or circumstances that can be the root cause of stress that leads to certain behaviors. Now, there are physical triggers and there are emotional triggers. Let's talk about physical triggers first. Simply put, physical triggers are issues that cause discomfort to a person with dementia. These triggers might include hunger. They might feel hungry, but they can't quite connect the discomfort in their belly to the need to eat something. Same is true for thirst. They may be aware that they need something, But they may have forgotten that sensation that they are experiencing is thirst. And if they do remember that they need water and that water comes from a faucet, they might not be able to get a drink because it's possible that they have forgotten how to turn the faucet on. They could also be really tired because Alzheimer's and other dementia-related illnesses can upset a person's biological clock, which makes it harder for them to fall asleep and stay in bed at night. Changes in vision can create a lot of stress. As we age, our vision naturally declines. As dementia progresses, peripheral vision becomes more narrow. And then if they have cataracts or their glasses get smudged and they can't see well, they're going to feel frustrated and stressed. And the same is true with hearing. When a person is living with dementia, their ability to process language decreases significantly. And that in itself is stressful when it comes to communication. And then if you add age-related hearing loss and perhaps a squealing hearing aid or two, they are going to get stressed. Also, there's pain, which is a huge trigger. UTIs, urinary tract infections, are very common in people with dementia. The pain is intense, but they don't understand it. They can't explain it. They just know that they hurt. Untreated, a UTI can cause confusion and agitation to the point of violence. Now, all pain triggers aren't from a significant pain. Small discomforts can create stress. If their shoes pinch, if there's a tag in the back of the neck of the shirt that scratches and irritates their skin, if they're too hot, if they're too cold, if they no longer know what they need to do to make these irritations stop, they get stressed. And then we add to that the emotional triggers, like loneliness can be a huge factor, especially if they don't have any regular interactions with anyone other than their caregiver. Boredom is a natural outcome there, and it can certainly lead to challenging behaviors. If a person was always physically and or socially active, they will probably not be very happy to sit in front of a TV all day long, behaving themselves and doing nothing. If there are no distractions or activities to keep them interested and engaged and burn off some of that energy, they might figure out how to create their own entertainment. Maybe they'll decide to walk to a shopping center, bake some cookies, or change the oil in their car, which are all reasonable activities for a person who does not have dementia. But it could be dangerous for them, and of course that creates a lot of stress for the caregiver. So, if you get mad, they will get mad in return. It's likely that they will mirror your emotional state and become just as angry and agitated with you as you are with them. And then there's fear, and that is another emotional trigger. They cannot always accurately interpret what's happening or even what they're seeing. As dusk approaches, the light in your house changes, and the setting sun can cast shadows on the wall that they don't understand. So when they look at the shadows, what they see may be intruders, ghosts, or monsters. Then, if you, as their caregiver, are also tired and stressed out, and what you want more than anything is just a little peace and quiet, it isn't going to take much for either of you to say something that starts an argument and leads to a meltdown. So if we can all agree that avoiding a blow-up and a meltdown would be much better than having one, perhaps we can take the first step of creative indifference by becoming aware, again, of how their routines, their environment, and our responses create stress for them and, in turn, for us. So, what I'd like for you to do is name the behaviors that are most difficult for you to cope with right now. Write them down. You might be able to identify the physical and emotional triggers that could be the root cause of their stress that accumulates throughout the day and becomes sundowning behaviors late in the evening. And then the second step will be acceptance. And this is hard because we have to acknowledge that the disease is in control and our care receiver's brain is in the process of dying. They will no longer be able to process information, solve problems, or relate to you the way that they did in the past. They will lose the capacity to manage their life and make decisions about everything, their routines, their activities, their health care, their grooming, and even the food they eat. All of that is going to fall on your shoulders, and this is going to be hard. But if you can accept that you are the only one who is aware of what's happening and what needs to be done, you will be in a better position to make those decisions and the choices and take the action steps that will keep them as safe, as comfortable, and as stress-free as possible as you go through this together.